Hello, my name is Mark Fishman. I'm the CEO of Building Brilliant Futures, which is one of the sponsors for this event this year. Building Brilliant Futures is a 501c3 charity where we work with inner city youth, and we use volleyball to get them into the classroom and to make sure that they understand that college is a probability, not just a possibility. With that, it's my honor today to introduce our members of today's roundtable. And I'm going to ask them all to please introduce themselves briefly. I'd like to start off with Karch Kiraly.
Hey there, Mark and everybody. I'm Karch Kiraly, former player for Team USA, and having coached with the women's national team the last 16 years, 12 as head coach, and have made the transition over to coaching with the men now. We're super excited about the next Olympic cycle. Hopefully it'll be a normal one. 4 years, not 5, not 3, and really excited about diving in.
Todd?
Thanks, Mark, and thanks to everyone for being on this call. I am a former USA beach volleyball player. I'm currently the head women's volleyball coach at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo and have been for about the past 10 years or so. I'm also collaborating with Mark Fishman and Patty Dodd with Beach Nation, as well as Building Brilliant Futures. Thanks, Mark.
Tyyiba?
Thanks, Mark, and hello, everyone. I am Tyyiba Haneef-Park, former women's national team player, 3-time Olympian, 2-time Olympic medalist, and now I am the head coach of San Diego Mojo on a Pro Volleyball Federation League. We are entering year 2 and excited about just the growth and the possibility of women's professional volleyball here in the USA. Thank you.
John?
I'm John Speraw, retired coach, current CEO for USA Volleyball.
April?
Hi, everyone. I'm April. I recently retired from my pro career, went to 3 Olympics, 3 medals, started in indoor training with the national team and at USC, then switched to beach and found my success there. So retired now, took a head coaching job at El Camino College. And other than that, just working on my mom skills.
First of all, congratulations on all the new changes, April, and the rest of you as well. This is really a time of new beginnings. John taking over USA Volleyball, changing the theme and the structure of how USA Volleyball works. Tyyiba as a coach, Karch in a new coaching position, April both as a mom and as a head coach, and Todd having to put up with me.
That's nothing new, Mark.
It's also factual. It is a time for new beginnings, and it's a new time with going into 2028 and the LA Olympics right around the corner. With that, John, you want to share some of your ideas about what we need to do, what you'd like to do, what the messaging needs to be for us to be able to accomplish your goals?
I think I'm about 60 days in to this new role, and you typically use this 90-day period to determine an answer to that very question. What is this vision for the future? I've spent a lot of time talking to many people on this call, throughout the volleyball community and all the different areas. We were talking about it before the call. I think what's really interesting to me is see the breadth of this job, because you have beach, indoor, sitting, events, regions, international community. There's just a lot of aspects of this sport that are all dynamic and growing and exciting, and there's so much opportunity in each one. And it's our goal, and certainly my job, is to try and maximize everybody's potential within that each lane. And I think our sport is growing so dynamically. And then you have LA coming up. Tyyiba just mentioned the women's professional leagues that are growing. I think women's sports in general has just grown so dramatically, and women's pro sports are at such an exciting time across the sports landscape. And here we are in a sport that we all know has great potential. So I think all of us here have opportunities to impact that growth, impact the experience. I keep coming back to the experiences of the athletes. What are the experiences of everybody from the professional level to the Olympic level and the opportunities they have? How do we impact that experience? But how do we impact the experience of a kid that steps onto the court the first time? What is that experience? How do we make sure that that is the best experience possible? And that entire range, top down, bottom up, how can we affect that and make volleyball the best experience possible for all of our athletes?
One of the things there's frequently been some level between the regions and the national body where there was some sand in the gears.
Mm.
You and I have talked about how you would like to change that experience and make volleyball national and the regions be able to work together more smoothly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think in general, we just need to have a much more collaborative mindset across the entire landscape. That you mentioned the regions. I had an opportunity to go to a regional meeting it was my second week on the job. And I said, listen, I understand that there's been some friction in the past, and I don't even understand the entire history of that friction. All I know is we actually have the same mission. If you talk to the regional commissioners, they're interested in grassroots, and they know that a lot of times the public facing aspect of the national team are the Olympic athletes. But that's the entire landscape that we all want to affect. We actually want more people playing the game and having a better grassroots experience and developing more talent, which is better for everybody, gives kids opportunities in sport, which we all here believe impacts the experience of our kids. That's a life add. I mean, it's such a valuable aspect for all of our lives, and we like to share that with the next generation. So that's grassroots development and opportunities. And then, of course, that builds more talent so we can hopefully win more medals at the end. We're all on this same path, and I don't really understand why there's been so many rocks on that path, Mark. And I think if you're talking about the other entities within the sport, JVA, AAU, other governing bodies, there's a lot of opportunity here. We are all trying to do the same thing. We certainly have the responsibility at the top to win Olympic medals, and we're excited about that, and we want to do our very best to achieve those goals. But we are invested in the growth of the sport, and we will do it collaboratively.
I think I speak for every region. That's just awesome to hear that it's a new day. It's a new beginning. Speaking of new beginnings, you're in the middle of finding a new women's coach. The old women's coach left that job.
Yeah,
you can see.
Yeah, he got out.
It's what are you thinking in terms of your expectations? What are you looking for from the coach? What are you looking for the program? What do you think about player identification and retention? How do you think this program should move forward going into LA 2028? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry. I think LA 2028 is the big goal, right? I mean, this is an amazing opportunity for our sport in this country and the exposure that a home Olympics will bring. And of course, as Karch will testify to, it's nice to already be qualified. So and a top seed. So that's a nice perk. Well, I think as you're looking at coaching positions, and I talked with Karch as we were discussing what his next move would be, I'm looking for somebody that understands that opportunity. It isn't just about the win, because the best thing we can do is go win gold medals. There's no question about that. It's also the opportunity for exposure, the opportunity for potential sponsorship involvement, the collaborative aspect, keep using that word here, collaborative aspect of how we work with other entities in the sport, the chance to put our sport in a spotlight. We want to be the breakout sport of the Olympic Games. That's what we want to be. We want to be the sport that people are talking about, because we've grown, we're on this path of growth, but we're not where basketball and soccer are. And so you have this amazing amount of people that are playing this sport, but it's not yet commercialized and doesn't quite have the exposure, it's not in the public eye nearly as much as it could be. And here's an opportunity for us to do that. And the head coaches that step into that role are going to be on panels like this. They're going to be in the media. They're going to be on podcasts. They're going to have an opportunity to communicate the reason why young people should be playing this game and why people should be watching this sport, which we all know. Listen, we're talking to ourselves here. We all know and love our sport. We all know how athletically dynamic it is, how much fun it is to play. It's the ultimate team sport. But it's up to these coaches that have opportunities when given in a spotlight like this to really communicate that message and help us accelerate out of LA into the future of what this sport can be. Secondarily, I think you're looking for somebody that's a role model. I think when you have somebody on the sideline on the national team, everybody watches. And I think this is an opportunity to provide an example for who we are and who we need to be. And I know Karch is the epitome of that. And so I was thrilled when he accepted this job, and I'm excited to get down the path. Well, I'm on it right now, but we're not there yet for hiring the women's coach. We're waiting for the end of this collegiate season, and so hopefully by sometime around the new year, we'll have an answer. But we have some great options. I think there are a lot of role models out there in the United States today. I think coaching in the United States is in a very good place. I think we have some good options moving forward. I'm very optimistic about what we can achieve over the next 4 years.
David, you got 2 silver medals, 3 Olympics. One of the things I don't think we've done a great job on is helping the women's players be known as the role models they are, and making the kids who are playing and coming up really know our national team members. You played for Karch. You're now a head coach. As you look back on your experience as a player with the national team, what are some of the things that you would say to John that you would share with Karch and tell everybody else? What could have been done differently? What would you have liked to have seen that was maybe not better, but definitely different? And what suggestions would you do to amplify some of John's messaging here?
Well, I love what John already talked about, and just the exposure for the women's game, exposure for the coaches, the players, developing role models, developing heroes in our sports, developing name figures. And I think in the age of NIL, you're already seeing that in the college level. And so how do we bring that into the national team space? How do we create identifiable figures? And I think that's something as a player I didn't necessarily have. And I think maybe in our generation, we didn't necessarily have that exposure. And so looking for those brands and the partnerships where we can get visibility for our players. I love that you talked about culture, because I think that's something, you don't have to be best friends on the team, but it definitely helps if you like each other and you have a very established culture. I think, unfortunate incident, but something that was very beautiful and positive in the end, 2008 Olympics, and, Karch and John have been there, but, there was tragedy there on the men's side. And, one of our former players was affected by that, with the death happening in the family there in 2008. And as a team, we learned how to compete for more than just ourselves. We had to represent what red, white, and blue means in the face of adversity. And so establishing culture right from the beginning. I don't think we had that on in my earlier playing experiences, where we just came in as a group of individuals and we were playing, and our only goal was to win gold, but we didn't know what it meant to be a team. And I really commend Karch the past few years. We've been working on teammateship and what it means, and having a culture coach. And so I do think if you have a very strong culture, again, then you breed people who can be the face of your national team. You can put them in front of the media and marketing and get these kind of brand deals. So I do really appreciate that Karch has worked on that. And I do think in John's comments talking about role models, that is part of our legacy. When you look to 2028, how do you develop a culture not on a just national team, but something that could be exemplified within the regions? And again, in my experience, we didn't have a lot of access. We didn't have a lot of partnership with the regions. And so you've got national team players, you can put them as a mentor for a club. You can have more meet and greets. You could have opportunities where they're partnering together. And so I think we're already on the right track. But I'm looking forward to more of that bond within the regions, and again, how we develop the culture even more towards 2028.
A bunch of years ago, I was lucky enough to help with the New England region. And when I have conversations to this day with the New England region, I know how important they believe it to be for grassroots, for working with the national program, for supporting USA Volleyball. The things that you're talking about are the things that I've always heard from the regions that they want. This is such a cool new beginning. It's I think we're going to get back to grassroots and being I hate to use the word that John just used 3 times, but collaborative organization. It's really pretty cool.
Can I ask a question or put something out
Please.
there? Like, I think this is really important to create stars in all the disciplines of volleyball. And it's something that I've seen fall through the cracks within USA Volleyball. And we kind of depend on other people to do it or individual athletes to do it. And I know from speaking to people involved in our marketing and social media in the past that there's not a lot of manpower, there's not a lot of resources. And the way that young people consume media and information and are exposed to things are through social media. So if they aren't seeing our athletes doing fun, cool things, and we're not speaking their language, and they don't think volleyball is a cool sport to play or that cool people are playing it, I think that limits us. And I've always thought that volleyball, at least beach volleyball, can spend more money in the marketing area. In this, the way the world is going, like I just feel like we need more manpower in the social media department. And we say, like, let's send athletes out to do these grassroots things with the regions. And I've done 1 or 2. And I think they're awesome. I think it's a great thing to do, but who is facilitating that? Like, is it on the regions? Is it the head, one of the coaches? Like, is it the office manager? Who's connecting these pieces? So we can talk about this. And I think it's really, really important, which is why I wanted to jump in. But like, who's in charge of that? And what are we doing to facilitate it?
And if I can just add to that, I know before the Zoom call started, I mentioned myself, Todd, and April were all on the board of directors at the same time. And so I think we have untapped resources in our past Olympians and our national team members. I think that we could find a way to use them a lot more for some of that social media, for those regional workshops, for mentoring, just talking about their experiences and getting people excited about just the national team movement and Olympic experience as a whole. I think it's a very delicate subject, as for many people, their last experience on a national team is probably being cut or they lost in some kind of tournament. And so there's a little bit of resentment in giving back to that organization. And sometimes I think there's a feeling of you're a number, you're a person. If you get injured, you can easily be replaced. And so how do we still support the people who have been in our organization for years and years, maybe don't make the Olympic team, but they've given back plenty, and that we could still use them to spread the word and positivity of what we're trying to establish, what John's vision is. There are a bunch of former players, beach, sitting, indoor, that would love to just help create a vision moving forward.
All right, can I jump in here?
Please.
So a couple comments here. So I'm taking notes. So I'm I'm not just a panelist. Listen, I couldn't agree more. And a big topic of conversation is, how do we build up stars? How do we collaborate with sponsors who have broader social media reach? How do we get into this commercial space better? We hired Jamie Weston just last week. She was a former senior VP at the NFL. She has a broad experience of doing exactly this. So I'm very optimistic about the future here. And just know, from my perspective, it's a huge area of emphasis. I understand what this could do for the sport. And I believe what the players are doing is the best. It's so exciting what all of you do on the volleyball court every day, and we should be sharing that. And there's so much opportunity to do that, and we need to be where our customers are. And right now, a vast majority of our customers are young girls playing this sport, and we have to know that. And we also have to know that on the boys' side, it's been the fastest growing sport of boys for the last 10 years. We've added, I think that it had gone 16 years before we'd even sanctioned a single state in high school boys volleyball, and over the last 2 years, it's been 12. So you have this growth opportunity here with boys too, and we can speak to them by building role models, building stars, and doing that. And that's going to be something that we emphasize over the next 4 years, 3.5 years going into LA.
Hey, John.
Sorry, Mark.
I just want to make sure that we put a footnote out there, which is there's going to be a lot of people watching this roundtable. And there's something called First Point Volleyball, which has been specifically working on growing boys volleyball across the United States and helping promote the growth of college programs as well. So if you're a young man, you should learn about First Point Volleyball. If you're the parents of a young man, you should learn about the growth of First Point Volleyball, because beach volleyball and indoor volleyball is growing like a weed. And if you want to help support these processes, there are ways that everybody can help support what's growing with in USA Volleyball. You talked about one of the great things about your job is you were intimate with the athletes and you were intimate with the athletes' frustrations. That's a great thing to have as a CEO, because these concerns are real and you had to deal with them every day. Yes, you've hired somebody new, but I guess my question is it worth creating some sort of a group of working with some of the regions and working with some of the players to create exactly what Tyyiba and April are talking about, which is how do we create a committee to take a look at working with regions, working with the national, working with these players or ex-players, these Olympians, and finding a way so that we can create solutions. What do you think about something down that path?
Yeah. It's a note I took when April asked that question, like who organizes these potential grassroots regional efforts that connects the former athletes or current athletes. I know the current athletes are always, the scheduling is always a challenge, but with former athletes in particular, how do we connect them with these opportunities? We actually understood, and this predated me, but we understood the importance of the regional relationship when we hired Michelle Goodall to be a regional collaborative director for us. And so, April, to your point, I took a note because I think this is an opportunity for her to step in and organize this specifically with the regions and provide those opportunities to former athletes. And Tyyiba's point is dead on. I mean, the alumni group of USA Volleyball it's an interesting group because the vast majority of them don't get to walk off the court on their terms. And we've talked about this as a team. The vast majority of them get cut. There's not an answer, or they get too old. Okay, neither is not that much fun. So, in the collegiate space, you graduate. There's a natural conclusion that happens every 4 or 5 years, and you get to that, and that's your time. Your time is up. All these professional athletes, they either get replaced by somebody younger or better, for the vast majority of them. And that, Tyyiba's point was, they leave and they're not the happiest alumni group. We need to make sure they understand and understand how much we appreciate the effort that they put forward to represent USA, and make sure we take care of them and continue to stay connected and continue to let them know how much we care, and that we still want them to be a part of this program. And the time that they put in there, that time was so valuable, and we really are grateful for it, and we need to communicate that. And I agree, if we communicate that well, there's a lot of opportunities for these former athletes to come back and help grow the game and help impact the experience of some young person who's seeing it for the first time.
Hey, Karch, bringing this back around to the women's program. And again, congratulations on the success of the program and how you modified and grew that program. One of my favorite volleyball moments was seeing you on the court surrounded by all the players when you guys won that gold medal. I think it was emotional. It was real. And somebody's at the front door. But it was emotional, it was real. It was so fun as somebody who had played against you 1,000 years ago to watch that evolution of you as a coach and as a mentor. What would you say to some of John's comments and for the next coaches of where do you think the program goes? How do you amplify some of the messaging? What are some of your thoughts?
I think John's on a great track already in terms of talking about role model, talking about the opportunity for the next 3.5 years, a rare opportunity to have Olympic teams already qualified, already holding the number one seed in the tournament regardless of their world ranking, and probably no Olympic Games on U.S. soil for 10 or for 20 or 30 years beyond that. So there's some great things happening in volleyball, and the numbers, especially on the women's side of participation, are through the roof. By far the largest participation of any team sport in women's athletics, which is super exciting. So there's a lot to build on. And April, you touched on it. Others have too. Like, we're working in this building. John and I are sitting in adjoining offices right now, and in Anaheim, very near Disneyland. And the teams have been based here since 2006. And there are junior tournaments happening every weekend for girls or for boys. And almost all of the teams and players who are in here have no idea that the USA teams, the Olympic teams, are based and they're playing on the very same courts and the very same nets that the teams use Monday through Friday. And don't know that the Olympics, I could almost throw a stone as to where the Olympics are going to be held. We could drive there. John and I could drive there and be there in less than 5 minutes to the Honda Center where indoor volleyball will be held. So we could think of that as a frustration, but when you see all these great things happening, I see it as a tremendous opportunity. I hear from coaches, let's say, of boys teams, and they'll say, yeah, I'll ask them, they can barely name anybody on our USA men's Olympic team, but they can name all 5 starters of 20 NBA teams. So what is that? It's not so much a complaint or a frustration, is there are so many good things happening, and that part of the equation is being missed, that I see it as a huge opportunity in these next 3.5 years to build those household names, to have people admire what a Faluka Akinradewo Gunderson or a Tyyiba Haneef-Park or a Jordan Larson, what they represent in every part of their being, character-wise, integrity-wise, professionally. Young girls and boys should be looking up to great role models like that. So John touched on it from a coaching standpoint, but I would also touch on it from a player, an athlete standpoint. Same on the men's side, these incredible role models like Matt Anderson, Micah Christensen, Eric Shoji, who've been doing it at a really high level for a really long time. So huge opportunity, really excited, and I'm sure John's got a lot of interest out there, and it's a great position to be in, to have that kind of interest, and lots of people excited about where it can still go. It's already made a lot of progress, but lots of opportunity there.
Question to April and to Karch. A lot of the people who are watching this won't remember your 2 Olympics indoor. Some of them won't remember those gold medals or the gold medal on the beach. They know you as the coach. During your playing time, you were probably the most famous U.S. volleyball player. You know, that whole team, those indoor teams you played with had a lot of success and a lot of fame. My question is going to be, one, what did you do differently, or what was different then that could be implemented now or restarted now to help build that fame and help build that marketing powerhouse that maybe is missing? So I guess the question is not what should we do, but what actually can we do? What's the process to be able to achieve those goals? And April, I think you've done an amazing job with your own brand. I know how hard you work in lots of different things, because you've always been, people don't realize how hard you grind at your professional business of building your brand. What are some of the things that you did that you would recommend to the beach players now? Because they need to do that to augment their income, given the state of beach where it is today. So with that, Karch, would you lead it off?
Sure. John touched on, or has been touched on, certainly of the, and Tyyiba's coaching in one of these professional leagues that are coming up now. Another one will be starting, so there will actually be 2 operating in January. But the other opportunity that presents is that far more of the top women American indoor players are spending most or all of their year inside the country and being available to talk about many of the things that April brought up, Tyyiba and others, just in terms of being able to be present and be seen and be there if there's a clinic held or appear here and there. It's really tough when you're spending 7 months a year outside the country, playing in Europe or Asia or Brazil or wherever, as the women up to now have been doing and as the men still continue to do. So the other benefit of having a professional league is it keeps our people around and they're more accessible, and we can get them in front of people more easily than the very tough dual season that people do when they play professionally overseas and then with USA in the national team season. The difference when I was playing is we were also in the country more. We were not allowed to play professional volleyball overseas because when I joined the team, we were 19th ranked in the world. We were awful and we needed a lot of work. So the rule was you are with this program 11 and a half months out of the year. And we have a lot of work to do to get up to be one of the elite teams on the planet. And that work paid off and that time paid off. And so being together means we would train all through the year and then also play these barnstorming tours where maybe Japan would come in and we would play a series of matches through the Midwest or a different team through the Northwest or Brazil along the East Coast. And people still come up to me and say, boy, I'll never forget when you guys were playing the Russians in George Mason in Virginia or in Philadelphia at Villanova. And so there were a lot more chances to expose and have people come and get an autograph afterwards and just kind of not be out of sight, out of mind. And so that's the other part of that benefit of having having professional leagues join or develop, is that more of our top people will be in the country more, they'll be seen more, they'll be hopefully followed and admired more, especially with really targeted, as April touched on, much better in the way of social media and meeting people where they are, young people where they are. So that was the strategy for the men and the women long ago. It can't really happen that way now, but now it's more on a professional leagues as they run, let's say, January through the end of May, or end of April, early May.
April. Thank you, Karch.
Yeah. That's a hard question. I think part of why, it was easier to create stars back in the day was just how big, at least on the beach, how big our tour was, how many partners we had, big alcohol brands, and people were in TV advertisements. We were on TV nationally every weekend. And I know that AVP is working really hard to get back to that spot. And there's some really intelligent, hardworking people in charge now. And I'm really excited about the future of the AVP and at least the exposure part of it and the potential to make more money as a professional player. The more support you can have as an athlete financially, the more you can dedicate to these other opportunities. It's an all day, everyday job being a professional volleyball player. And I think COVID changed what our responsibilities are. Before, you could just work on being the best athlete that you could be and, hopefully have success. Brands would partner with you. There's your exposure. You do some social media on the side. Great. Like your brand is growing. Now in COVID, you couldn't do those partnerships. You couldn't have film crews come out and film you and then they take the brunt of it. Now it's like, oh, we have to create all this content on our own and push it out on our own and be these professional filmmakers and be on TikTok and be on Instagram. And it's like a whole nother job. And so for an athlete to have to do that on top of training all day, I think it's asking too much, which is why any help we can get within the USA organization or brand partnerships, the better. That's going to help a ton. But we need to, I just think it goes so deep. Like we need to build the actual volleyball brand in general. And then that's going to help create the stars, and the more funding we can get within our tours, the more freedom it's going to give these athletes to build their own brands. And for me, it was just about saying yes to every opportunity that came my way. Like, yes, I want to get paid for things, but understanding that, saying yes is going to create more opportunities, even if it doesn't, bring in the return you want right away. So being willing to grind, being willing to work hard, start small, and then it's going to grow bigger. I have a question maybe for Tyyiba, because I think a big theme of this roundtable is working together. We all want volleyball to grow, and being on the beach side, we've had competing entities before, and I don't think it, necessarily helped beach volleyball grow. Do you think there's any chance that PVL and Love B work together in any way, or create an AFC versus a NFC with a championship type of deal? Because I think that could be really powerful.
I can only speak for myself, and so I hope that it gets to that level. I think that there have been historically, whether it's NFL, NBA, there have been separate leagues that eventually have to join together for the growth and opportunity of the sport. And I think that is something that's definitely down the line. I think currently PVF and Love have two separate models on how they are coming to market. I think PVF is probably a little bit more traditional based with the owners in separate cities, and your own kind of identity and investment, where it seems that Love has a bigger, larger investment group that is maybe putting players in certain markets, but their competition format is a little bit different as well. I think both programs have to prove their success. And once they prove their success at some point, I think that there is the opportunity to combine. And again, you're pulling from the same resources of coaches and talent with players. And so I think at some point, the product almost gets watered down. And so maybe you have something somewhere where the leagues are joined, and maybe one is the elite league, and maybe one is a G League or a feeder system, or one becomes more of that next step for college athletes. We talk about how much is happening at the regional level and how much we want to create these opportunities. Well, we've got 300 schools plus in women's volleyball that are playing, but we don't have the opportunity for all these players to play here at home. And so if Love can continue to grow, if PVF can continue to grow, it's not just a place for the national team members to have a place to stay at home. It becomes a place where we can feed the best of the best and filter them into American volleyball. So personally, I do hope down the line that there is room for growth in all of it, and that there is a way to combine and share resources and really promote some of the top athletes, but still hold space for those who are developing their game and want to play home in front of their family and friends and perfect the craft that they love and earn money.
Well, as a spectator, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I also think that's a great opportunity for us to transition and talk about beach for a little bit. John, you have talked to me about, and a lot of other people, about how do we identify the players? How do we retain the players? How do we train the players?
Mhm.
And talking with Todd, we went back to the AVP. And when we talk about the AVP, there's really been 3 or 4 different companies, ownership models So the AVP, what it was and what it is, are so different now versus what it was. Times were very different. Management was very different. Views were very different about what they wanted to do. Back in the day, there was a lot of money in the AVP. They had large purses. There was no reason really to go overseas. You'd make more money here than going over and playing. Right now, we have American athletes going to play futures events, and if they win, they win basically $500. So you get to go to Europe, eat the costs, and if you win, you get $500. You can do better playing in a local tournament here. Back in the day, the AVP ran a lot of events with a lot of money. So if you were an athlete coming up, you didn't have to go anyplace. Every weekend, you were battling it out with the best players. And if you weren't that good, you weren't winning, and the amount of money was significant. So it was a great motivator for people to come up and come through. Something else that was different was there were events where you had 90 women's teams and 100 men's teams in the qualifier. So if you were playing in Ohio, you had a 64-team pool. All the local people were invested because they were watching their brothers, sisters, cousins, etc. They were watching those local players compete, and those players who got to the end got to play with those pros. Now, we have a very small number of pros showing up in different communities. So what the AVP is doing now is an amazing product with a very different vision, building the grassroots side, growing the money side so that other people can make money as well and grow through and stay here, is incredibly important to a new model for the United States to be able to attract, retain, and evolve our athletes. April, I'd love to get your view on this first, because again, I'm with you. I think this new AVP is run by very smart people who are very talented, and they're building a different product. But what do you think about also not only about the existing AVP, but about building the grassroots side here in the United States so that we can attract the next April Ross or the next Todd Rogers? How do you think we do this so that we can build out volleyball here?
Well, I think we're doing a really great job on the women's side. From what I hear from everyone involved is that it's just growing like wildfire. I know it's concentrated in certain areas, maybe, where it's easier to play beach volleyball. But the thing that's concerning for me is the shrinking of the draw size. So we've like at the pro level, the draw size has continued to get smaller, 32 teams in the main draw to 24, now to 16. And it's really hard to make the jump to pro if you have to be one of those top 8, 16 teams to make any money. You need a transition period. You need time to learn the game and be competitive and get better. And then, especially if you're going to be more of an indoor player transitioning to beach, there's going to be a lot of failure. Like, even when the tour was really big and I was a top indoor player, we had tons of tournaments, lots of, prize money to be had. I lost a ton of money my first year on the beach, but I could see, the light at the end of the tunnel. If I kept working, like, there would be payoff. And now it's just really hard to break into the pro ranks. And you have to be able to have a career as a professional beach volleyball player to compete for USA. Am I frozen? Okay. To compete for USA, you can't just be an athlete that plays for USA volleyball. Like, you have to be able to make a living on the pro tour. So I know this doesn't come down to USA volleyball, but just to see the FIVB, the International World Tour, and the AVP expand their draws back to 32 teams would be a lot more encouraging for people getting into the sport at the grassroots level. I think, I don't know how you necessarily grow the sport in the Midwest. I think it's happening kind of naturally. I think it's a really great prospect to play beach volleyball in college. If I could go back, I might choose the beach volleyball route over the indoor route. Getting to be outside every day, and it's just a little bit of a different culture. I think it's enticing. So I think more girls are looking to get into the sport. And I know that it is growing. So I think we're doing an okay job. And on the women's side, we just need to continue doing what we're doing, honestly.
So Todd, obviously Olympic gold medalist, head beach coach at Cal Poly. You're working with that next generation of up and coming athletes. You're recruiting the top women coming out of the high school programs. You see that at a national level, and both you and Karch got to play in the heyday of the AVP with those tournaments. What are your thoughts on athlete identification, retention, and the growth of the game? What do we need to do as we've gone from an AVP model and the world went to a program model? And what do you think?
April touched on it in terms of the women's side. I think the women's side is doing pretty well because of the college beach. It is growing exponentially at the juniors level. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's really, really high. It is still growing at the collegiate level, and the level of coaching that is happening at the juniors level into the collegiate level is allowing for a lot of these gals, as we have seen, just to literally jump into the pro level market and be effective immediately. Certainly, our two Olympic teams on the women's side were early 20s to mid 20s, and we're out of college, 2 to 5 years or something like that. So I think from that side, that looks really solid. My only concern on the women's side is kind of what April touched on, which is, can we get more of them so that it's more lucrative for many of them to be able to play? And April kind of went down the road of a larger draw, which I think there's two roads you can kind of take, which is the larger draw or creating feeder tours. Tyyiba talked a little bit about that on the indoor women's side as well, of having potentially the two tours becoming a feeder tour to one or the other. Is that another viable option where someone, like April, that came out and kind of, got her feet wet, could she jump into, level A and then B and then C, knowing full well that there's a path that she can take, or is it just bigger draws? I don't have the answer to that. I know bigger draws do cost more money, certainly in prize money, as well as just overall all costs. But again, I don't have an answer for that. My main concern really is for the men's side, even though I'm now a women's coach. I've been struggling to see where the next players are going to come that are going to create basically a competitive atmosphere where we can get back to being the best in the world. We touched on that already as a group about how back in the day that's what it was. It was just a competitive atmosphere where we all beat up on each other and became better for it. Right now, we have a handful of teams and a handful of players that are very, very good. I would argue 10 years ago, much less 20, 30 years ago, we just didn't have a handful. We had 20, 30 people that were all just beating up on each other nonstop. Can we get back to that model? I'm not sure. I'd love to see, and again, I don't have the answers to these questions per se. I'd love to see USA Volleyball, and John, this is kind of a lob over towards you on this one. Create that system, and if that means going over more towards the European model that kind of started 20 years ago, where it's a much more subjective model as far as who's getting into the pipeline and who's going to be supported, et cetera. Maybe that's the answer as well, is to some degree. One last thing I want to kind of touch on, and what I've heard over and over again in every single aspect of our sport, is the marketing simply needs to be better. April touched on it pretty passionately because I think she's pretty passionate about marketing. John, you touched on it. It just seems like how we market in the next 4 years. And John, this is going to be ultimately on you. And thank goodness you're a brilliant man, because I have a lot of faith in you on this front, that we can catapult every single aspect of this sport through USA Volleyball if the marketing is done correctly. And hopefully in every aspect of the sport, we can find, the next Caitlin Clark, who is, I don't want to say single-handedly, but has really raised the bar for the WNBA and women's in sports in general as well. So I think if the marketing decisions are made and they're the right decisions and we're moving forward, I think a lot of what we're talking about right now outside of marketing will come to fruition, because the marketing and it will drive the dollars, which the dollars will then drive the players into all of our various disciplines of the same sport. John, I don't know if I lobbed any crazy stuff at you there, but just wanted to kind of lob it over to you and get your thoughts on it.
It's April, go ahead before.
I just wanted to add a little bit. I agree on the beach side. A little more subjectivity could go a long way. I think it'd be a big jump to go directly to a European model. But I do, and I know Sean Scott is working really hard at this and does it, and I think it could pay dividends. There needs to be a little more accountability on the beach side. I know we're all, a lot of us prefer individuality, choosing our own coaches. We want to have the control of creating our own competitive advantage because we're competing with USA teams for our own livelihood, for Olympic medals. I mean, look at London 2012. It was us, me and Jen versus Carrie and Misty for the gold medal. They're not our compatriots at that point, like we want to beat them. We might as well be different countries. So, but I do think with the girls and men coming, the women and men coming up, a little subjectivity of who has potential would be helpful. And I don't know how to put this delicately, but I think there's a different mentality with women's training at the pro level than men's training at the pro level. And to have to report back to USA or show that you are putting in the time day in and day out to be the best in the world, there needs to be some kind of a little bit more accountability there. And I think that could go a long way. We have the athletes, we have the athleticism, we have the skill level on the men's side, but it's like, how do we get them catapulted into the, top rankings on the world tour? And maybe a little more shepherding from whoever at the top coaching wise could go a long way, in my opinion.
So, April, is it fair to say that we just need to refine the process and to make this a little bit more accountable and constructive so that we can help train some of these players a little differently?
For sure. And a good example of this is I found the resources at USA Volleyball so helpful. I was always immensely grateful that I had a strength and conditioning coach for free. I had a nutritionist for free. I had physical therapy for free. Like I used all the resources at USA Volleyball to the, largest extent that I could. And I'm seeing now a lot of players are going outside of USA Volleyball to get their strength and conditioning, to have their physical therapy done. I don't understand it. I don't know why. I think to keep everything in-house more would be useful as well. I think we have great resources, and to monitor the athletes, make sure they're getting in the gym, 3 times a week, make sure they're doing their physical therapy so they're not injured. Like we need to keep tabs on these athletes and encourage them. And sorry, the last thing I'm going to say, because it was a big star on my notes. I think mentorship, Tyyiba talked about it a little bit from the Olympic level down, but I think mentorship could go a long way. Like Todd was so disciplined, hardworking, And you saw it on the court and it paid off. And if there was some way to involve him mentoring, maybe like a Miles Partain, or a Miles Evans, especially when these athletes are going to the Olympics for the first time and they don't know what to expect. And okay, maybe they have these workshops from people who are not athletes telling them some things to expect. But like Todd's been there, he's lived it. I've been there, I've lived it. Like, reach out to me and let me go to coffee a couple of times with these girls before they go to the Olympics, or even in a more structured way. I think having past athletes who've done well at the Olympics mentor some of these new athletes would be really helpful.
All right. I guess this is where I jump in.
I think
Uh,
this is where you get to
This is where I solve beach.
this is why you get paid the big bucks.
I tell you, it's a complex aspect of USA volleyball, and I both Todd and April hit points that I think are interesting. First, the economic model, which nobody's really been able to solve since Miller Lite pulled out. So since the Miller Lite heydays, I don't know how many times the AVPs rolled over ownership, and this economic model obviously drives talent. Todd mentioned it. There used to be 20 or 30 guys that were playing in the tour that were elite level athletes. Now those 20 or 30 guys are staying indoors because the economics tell them that going overseas to play in Europe is a much better financial decision, and that's accurate. I'm not sure exactly the influence or impact USAV can have on the economic model of beach in the short term. I don't know what that is. No one's been able to solve it. So I know there are conversations about that. The F5EB and AVP is at least trying something new, right? I mean, they're trying something new, and I really appreciate that. If it hasn't worked before, let's do something new and see how that works. I think that's admirable. So the economic model is a complexity. The cultural aspects of beach is a complexity. I hear about this all the time in my conversations I've had over the last 60 days about this. Hey, we have to compete against our fellow countrymen because we're trying to get to the Olympics, and we might have to play against them. I mean, April, I'd actually forgotten you guys met in the gold medal match. This is such a perfect example of that feeling that they all have, and it's all awkward. I mean, most athletes tell me, I don't really like competing against my fellow country or more cheering against my fellow country, but I'm trying to get to the Olympic Games. Is there an opportunity there? There might be, but I think that this hybrid, boy, April just really nailed it in terms of some conversations that are ongoing. Are we going to keep doing what we currently are doing? And the answer is no, because we need to do better. So what are the next options? Are we going to completely break it up? Let's do something new. Let's go to a more European model. Let's have a head men's coach, head women's coach, 2 assistants. Everybody trains together on the beach. It seems like the appetite to do that is not there because that's a big stretch. It's a big jump. I think, April, you may have even said that. It's a big jump. Like somebody literally said that in a meeting over the last 60 days. It's a big jump. And so can we go back to what we were doing with Tyler Hildebrand? Can we have a national beach coordinator who's helping everybody? Can there be accountability? That's a really interesting point. How do we distribute direct athlete support to ensure that there's some accountabilities to make sure that we're moving the ball forward? That's also an ongoing conversation. I don't have all the answers. I think having conversations like this, Mark, are exactly what we need to be doing as a sport. I think there's a lot of expertise and great ideas and creativity just here, and we need to have more of those conversations, as you and I have talked about. I think I want to do something different. I want to move forward. I want to invest my time in making sure that the beach athletes feel like they're being served, because I'm not sure that's always been the case. And I want them to know that USAV is invested in their success. What that looks like, I can't solve it today on this panel. I'm sure it's very disappointing, but I think it is.
But John, it's not about solving it today.
Yeah, right.
It's about people knowing that this is being addressed appropriately and that it's important. And instead of talking about the problems, that there's really a group of people within USA Volleyball led by you that's working towards solutions, not just identifying the problems, but building solutions.
Yeah, no question. And that is the case, sincerely. And what are we doing moving forward? And certainly I'm hearing loud and clear, and also share the opinion that marketing is going to be a big aspect of what we need to be doing moving forward. And that's also serving the athletes. Like April, I wrote down a note, like the content development is a huge piece of all this. And it takes so much time. And we've invested that already here at USAV. We have an internal content director, and we need to have one on the beach too, and making sure that they're out there every day and coordinating that type of, at least, content curation, like how it gets put out there by the athlete, that can be up to them. And certainly we would like to support that too, long term. But I hear these messages a lot. I think they're spot on with a lot of conversations that are ongoing, and we're going to continue to hold roundtables like this and move this forward and do better. We want to win medals, and we want the athletes to feel like they're being supported in that effort.
I'd like to throw one thing out there, which was historically USA Volleyball did not always do the greatest job with building partnerships and evolving our brand partnerships to support our programs. It's a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have high school coaches. We're going to have parents. We're going to have people who have an enormous amount of professional expertise listening to this roundtable. I think it would be a good idea, and you're not going to be able to get back to everybody, but there's going to be a lot of people out there who are experts in marketing, who do work for some of these large companies in senior executive positions that would love to help USA Volleyball. They believe in it. They believe in the people on this panel, but they don't know who to contact. They don't know who to send an email to. They don't know how to create that bridge. And USA Volleyball doesn't have, it's not the NBA. We don't have those resources.
Hmm.
So my question is, if you're watching this, and I'm just going to throw this out there, we're playing at the Honda Center in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody from Honda that would love to help sponsor USA Volleyball at this Honda Center, or
Right.
other large brands who some have worked with USA Volleyball in the past. Some we know who they are, and some we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Who do they reach out to? How do we create the connectivity? How do we build the bridge? Do they send an email to you? You will be overwhelmed. Where do they reach out to?
So they can reach out to me, Mark, and we have people now that'll help me manage all the incoming information that I get, because I do get hit a lot. But also Jamie Weston, who's our new chief commercial officer that I brought up earlier on this call. And you can reach her at jamie.weston@usav.org. You can reach me at john.speraw@usav.org. And we've already been in contact with the Honda Center, and so I mean we're working on it. But again, it's also making sure we pick the right partners that align with our values. I mean, we need to understand exactly who we are, what we're trying to represent as a sport. What are the attributes of our game that we find most valuable, and then that we want to promote, that we believe in, and then how do we match up with partners that also believe those same things? Because when you have that symbiotic relationship with effective partnerships, that's when you can really accelerate growth and opportunity, and hopefully financial resources for the organization and our athletes.
With that, anybody else have any questions for anyone? Well, I would like to thank everyone for being part of this year's roundtable. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and it's fun. So thank you all. Thank you all who are going to be watching this, and let's go USA.